you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
Shoulders did enjoy a good squeeze.
Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon.
Bonus content.
Did you watch James Bond growing up?
Not necessarily growing up. Not when I was little. But like I came in right at the Pierce Brosnan age, like GoldenEye.
Sure. Yeah, he was our Bond for sure.
GoldenEye came out when
100%.
we were, it was what, early 90s?
Yeah. We were in prime movie watching age, especially for shit like that.
And they made that N64 game.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, the 80s Bond sucked. Timothy Dalton's era. They
only
weren't
made
good.
2, right?
I think so. 2 or 3. They were dark and they looked like shit. Especially if you ever look at them, watch one of them, and then you look at the movies that came out that year, and you're like, wow, like, it looks
really?
like a TV. It looks like a TV movie. Really, most of it, all of them. The Timothy Dalton ones. I don't know why they just look terrible. Yeah, it was definitely, that was a huge revamp when the Pierce Brosnan era started. GoldenEye was a real high budget, slick, modern action movie. It was great. I loved it as a kid. I loved it, but I don't know. I struggle to watch them now. Almost all of them, and we're between Bonds right now when we're recording this. Daniel Craig's era is over, and no one knows who the next Bond is going to be. There have been ideas, just like there always is when the mantle's being passed. I remember when Brosnan gave it up, and they were so upset that there was going to be a blonde James Bond when they announced Daniel Craig.
And, well, don't get me wrong. Daniel Craig was awesome. I loved James Bond.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, he was a. I'm not going to say that all of his Bond movies were good. They certainly weren't. Neither were Brosnan's. The last couple he did were awful.
Yeah.
But
God, I'm
he
having
was a
trouble
great
just
Bond.
to remember them. There was Pierce Brosnan had what? GoldenEye. He had Tomorrow Never Dies.
Never Say Never Again, maybe? I don't...
He had The World Is Not Enough.
The World Is Not Enough is definitely one of them, yeah. But that was the one with the invisible car. Remember?
Yeah. And like, I remember, I never saw that one. But like someone tried to explain it to me, and they're like, yeah, some guy gets like diamonds smashed into his face, and it gives him powers. And I was like, what? And
I don't know. No, like there was more. He got the powers from another reason, but he was in an explosion, and diamonds acted like shrapnel, and they were embedded in his face, and he left them
powers.
There. Yeah, he was like super strong or something, but that was from some other shit. It was weird. It was like a super soldier thing.
That's dumb.
Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough were 2 of them for sure. Yeah, it seems like they only ever have so much steam every time they reinvent the character. Like they keep trying to go for the longevity from the old days, and I don't know, maybe it's because the world changes too fast now, but I guess that's the question. Do we need another James Bond? Is there a reason to keep this character that keeps getting reinvented over and over again to suit the times? Like, what's the point? You have to change James Bond so much at this point, then why not just other than a cash grab, other than sticking with the property because it has an audience? Is there any other reason to not write original spy stories instead?
Well, I think like Bond is a very distinct flavor of spy movie. It's fantastical in a way that a traditional spy movie is not going to be as glitzy and glamorous and whimsy as a Bond film. But like they're so over the top.
There's a cartoonish level to it, yeah. And
Yeah, so it you could write more spy movies that are original, but none of them will be the same flavor as Bond, and still be. I don't think they'll be good. I don't know if you could write a good one that's the same flavor as James Bond.
But like they changed that so much with Daniel Craig, though. You know, like
Yeah, they brought it back down to earth a lot.
yeah,
But still, those movies are absurd. They're insane.
yeah. The last couple, yeah. Casino Royale is pretty grounded-ish until you get to the whole Venice collapsing part at the end. And
Casino Royale is awesome.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was
That
my
one's
favorite.
great.
It was really good. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. No matter who they pick, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get excited for James Bond coming back in the 21st century.
Well, yeah, I
anew.
think there's two reasons for that, I think. Number one, we've been bonded to death.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of Bond, and it would be hard for me to get excited about a new one. But I have to pose the question, like, so let's say they are going to make one, because you know they will.
Yeah.
Is there anyone right now that you could point at that you think that guy would make a great James Bond, that you'd be like excited to see?
Well, I guess I hate to answer with a question, but like, I guess you'd have to know what kind of Bond they're going to be trying to make. You know, is it going to be another Daniel Craig-esque Bond where he's all rough and tumble and, you know, more grounded, more down to earth, or are they going to like make an Archer, more like an Archer Bond, like back to the roots?
Well, which one would you make?
I don't know. I just saw that movie, The History of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Oh,
I think.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And that movie has a tone that I feel would be interesting for a Bond franchise. Like, it's this very hyper realistic, over the top, everything's like a bit bigger and bolder. Like, it's set during World War II. So it's weird to see gigantic steroid jack dudes in like 40s clothes, you know.
Right. They didn't
mowing
make him
people
that
down
big
with
back
machine guns. Yeah, they didn't have protein shakes back then and shit and steroids. But I don't know. There's something fun about it. You know, it's action movies. It allows it to be extremely violent without being like horrific. You know, and you know they're shooting Nazis. It's all good. But I don't know. I think it'd be interesting considering the success of Archer. Like if you took it in the other direction and made it like a tongue-in-cheek kind of the way Bond used to be, but made the action really cool and over the top, and there was like a level of violence. The problem, I don't know how to say it, but I guess they did a good job with the Daniel Craig one. I was going to say like the romance angle. Like it's really, how do you do that today and be tasteful about it and not piss everyone off? You know?
Oh, geez, I don't know that you can.
Like, I guess the only way you do it is to go the Archer route, like, and make him.
Well, you could go that route and make it so over the top and ridiculous as to nod to the audience, like, we realize this is inappropriate, you know. But then, like Daniel Craig, if you watch Bond movies, the hallmark of the Bond movie is the Bond girl, and it's a different girl in every movie. And the Daniel Craig ones actually had an arc where you had the same girl in two movies, and there's a child involved, and like they were like he loved her in a way that he was going to die for her, which is they'd never done that before. And so that's the way you would go with it if you're going to go for like a serious romance. Or you have to, like you say, you have to be completely ridiculous and just very tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd have to do something different either way. You'd piss people off no matter what, I guess.
Oh yeah, for certain. All right, well,
Yeah.
okay, but like if you're gonna do like Archer and make it campy, who
Yeah.
plays Bond?
All right. If you're gonna go that way, I this is terrible. My first gut reaction was Austin Butler. I don't know if he can be funny though. I don't know how he would do with that. He seems like too serious of an actor.
Oh, jeez.
But I don't know. He's pretty enough.
Elvis. You'd have Elvis
Yeah,
playing James
he's
Bond.
pretty enough. Everyone I'm thinking of is too old because I'm old.
you don't know who
he's
the young
fucking-
people are
I
anymore.
don't know these fucking kids anymore. I know that fucking jerk off from Twisters
Oh, his name's Glenn Powell.
with his small face.
He does have a weird face.
Small face. I don't
Something
like
about his mouth.
it ain't right. He ain't right. Well, you can't have Henry Cavill in everything. So, and there's actually been talk about him being Bond because he is British.
He is British.
I don't know. Who would you? Who would
I have
you go?
no idea.
I
I
threw
don't
up
have
one
an answer
name.
for this.
You have no idea.
I have no clue. I've like honestly, I've read some articles about it, and like I see other people's suggestions, and I wind up going like, oh yeah, I could see that, but I don't have some running list of names where I'm like, oh, that person would crush it. And again, like some of them, I maybe at one point I did, but they're all too old now.
Yeah, I honestly think they'd be better off picking a relatively unknown actor
Right.
to do it. Although, if you're gonna have the tongue-in-cheek one, let's just make it Jensen Ackles. No British accent, just straight American accent.
Or like a really bad British accent.
Yeah, fuck it, why not?
Just awful.
I mean, he's tall enough too. The dude is huge.
Is he?
Yeah, he's like 6'4".
Oh, I guess he's standing next to Jared Padalecki. He doesn't look
Yeah, that's
that tall.
Sasquatch. He's like 6'7". I remember them talking about how hard it was to film Supernatural and make them look like normal-heighted people all the
'Cause they
time with their
tower over
co-stars.
everybody.
Yeah, because they look like these giant Sasquatches wandering around. I don't know. I don't really know who else would work. None of today's big names. We're in this weird era where slight weaselly looking dudes are the leading men.
Oh, like
now.
Timothy Chalamet,
Yeah, and what's his name from The Bear?
Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah, Jeremy Allen White. Chalamet is going to be playing Bob Dylan,
He is.
which tracks. That's fitting.
Yo,
So,
I don't
but
know that he
I don't
looks
see-
like Bob Dylan, but he sounds like Bob Dylan.
He's got the physicality down from the trailer that I saw,
Sounds
and
like him.
they're the same size. But that's my point. Like a guy that can play Bob Dylan really, really well. I don't see him as James Bond.
But a guy that can
Who
play
else?
Elvis.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's got the suave part, but can he be goofy? Like Pierce Brosnan had that great mix of being like super handsome and suave and having all that shit, and then he was so British, but like upper crust British.
He's Irish.
I know, but the accent he used for Bond was so like, I guess what an American would think of as posh
Right.
British. There was just something just right about his tone, especially in GoldenEye, where you believed he could swim in like any circle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you believed that this guy, even though he's the dumbest spy in the world and uses his real name everywhere he goes, that he could fit in all these weird different places. And then he could also like get down and do like spy shit, like in the beginning when he
Right.
rappels down that dam and stuff. Like Roger Moore always seemed like too much of a wuss to do the spy stuff to me. Like, yeah, I believed he could be all fancy talking and wearing tuxedos and shit, but whenever he like got down to business, he always just seemed goofy and out of place. Sean Connery had that mix, you know,
Sean Connery.
the same way Pierce Brosnan did, and Daniel Craig just went hard the other way. Like
He seemed like just supremely capable.
he's got that face though, where he just looks like a thug. You know what I mean? Like he looks tough. He looks like he's taking punches to the face. So it was a different kind of Bond, and I mean he looked awesome. He looked great in a tux. I mean, but it's a different presence. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was like a weapon.
Yeah, like he was like he was like Jason Bourne in a tux, but rougher looking. You know, like Jason Bourne too fucked up how people think of spy movies a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of like a Bond franchise, like how you address it. Like I guess they did with Daniel Craig. What,
My
the Firstborn?
dad brought that up. He said Jason Bourne came out. He goes, "Oh my God, this Jason Bourne thing just out-bonded the Bond movies." And I watched it.
Wait, are you talking about the Bourne Identity, the first one?
Yeah.
The very first one? Okay.
Yeah, because that came out before the Daniel Craig Bonds. He goes, they just out-bonded the Bond films. My dad was a big fan of the Bond films. And then he'd say, yeah, they just wrote the book on like how to do a spy thriller. And then Casino Royale comes out and somehow tops in my opinion, the Bourne Identity. That foot chase in the beginning of Casino
different,
Royale
though.
is nuts.
It's very different because I mean, Bourne Identity is supposed to be so grounded in our. Like you're supposed to believe that that's in our world, you know. There's still stuff in Casino Royale that's fantastical, and even the technology is a little. It's not too over the top, of course. Like I give you that. It's the most grounded that I think I've ever seen in that series of movies. But yeah, I definitely think that had to do with what Bourne did. Like you couldn't come out with the Pierce Brosnan type Bond movie, no matter who you had as the actor after the Bourne movies started. You just couldn't do it. Just like you couldn't have a fight scene in a movie the same way anymore after the fucking Bourne movies came out.
Oh yeah, those are.
And that was a bit. The ones in the Bourne movies were good, most of the Bourne movies, but the trend it started was bad. All the quick cuts and close-ups and can't see what the fuck's going on because it was cheap. To do it bad was cheap because you didn't have to choreograph a fight. You just had to choreograph like arms moving and shit and close-ups and
you needed a shot list.
Yeah, and smash it together with a million cuts. Thank God they started getting away from that. I don't know when they did, but John Wick may have been one of the first movies to really go the other way that I can remember. I remember watching that and being like, holy shit, they're showing like the whole fight.
Yeah, John Wick was awesome.
Like, I'll never forget, because that movie didn't have a lot of buzz when it came out. Like, it wasn't big in theaters from what I remember.
No.
And I didn't see it until I watched it at home, and I was fucking stunned. Like, I remember the scene in his house when the first time you see him do anything, and the team of guys comes to kill him, and just the way he mowed through them, and the way that whole thing was choreographed, I was extremely excited because I hadn't been impressed by an action movie in a very, very long time, or a fight scene or anything. And that first scene in his house is just awesome. It's awesome.
It really is.
And it ends with that amazing thing where he punches that knife into the dude's chest.
Oh, yeah. He's just driving it in further and further. That was nuts.
And the guns, the handgun, the fighting mixed with the handguns and the close, like point blank shots.
Oh, man.
Like,
well,
the only time I'd ever seen. Are you gonna say the same movie I am?
Equilibrium.
Yeah, that's the only time I ever saw a movie try to do that, and they did what they could back then with that budget that movie had.
Yo,
and it was a great idea.
for anyone that hasn't seen Equilibrium, it's
Gotta see
goofy.
Equilibrium.
It's
It's goofy,
goofy.
but
That
it's also
movie-
a science fiction movie, so
that
it's
movie's
allowed to
awesome.
be goofy. Like that's Ray Bradbury level science fiction.
Yeah, that's
Like,
like
it's very austere. It's like a throwback.
Fahrenheit 451
Yeah,
meets-
it really is.
meets 1984 meets The
a bit.
Matrix.
Yeah, well, a bit. Yeah. It was ambitious for what it was and what they were able to do with. And if you watch it with the eye, you can tell they didn't have a lot of money to make that movie.
No.
But they did really good at stylizing it so that it felt like a different world. And part of that was what did they call it? Gun kata?
Yeah, or they
Right?
dubbed it. They called it gun fu. Yeah, and also the gun kata.
Yeah, I think when people wrote about it, they called it gun fu. But it was a hand-to-hand fighting style that incorporated handguns and point-blank shooting. And very, very much what you see in John Wick, except they usually use what, 2 pistols, and it was way more it was made more like Jedi Knight-ish.
Yes.
You know, like there were forms and like they said some nonsense about like they developed this fighting style.
Yeah, I think like based on average in historical, the position of people in a room that you were about to go
Right.
into became a statistically predictable element.
Right.
And you could
Yeah.
like get maximum firing efficiency by doing this kata and shooting into different areas of the room.
And the best at this, like the fucking ninja
Remember his
masters
name?
of this, who Christian Bale,
Yeah, you remember his name?
Preston, wasn't it?
John Preston. Yeah.
Yeah, John Preston,
Cleric of the Tetragrammaton.
Tetragrammaton. Yeah.
Well,
and what was
who wrote
it? That real handsome black dude. What's his name? Tyrese. Was he in that? No. It was he was a much better actor.
What was his
Tyrese was in the fucking Fast and Furious movies.
Tay Diggs?
Tay Diggs, my man. Tay
Was it him?
Diggs.
Yeah.
It was him.
He was in it. Sense
He was
Offense.
He was really good. He didn't get enough play. Tay Diggs was. He was in Go. He was fucking hilarious in that movie. You know who was in that too? The guy who played Robert the Bruce in Braveheart.
Angus McFadden.
Angus McFarlane. Angus
Fadden?
McFadden. Hey, Angus McFadden. He's the asshole in that.
Yeah, he bad guy.
Yeah, he's the asshole bad guy. There are some scenes in that too that they're upsetting on a philosophical level,
What?
and not just the scene where they shoot all the dogs
Oh,
off
yeah.
screen. They shoot the dogs off screen. You
That
hear
part's
it.
gnarly. It's bad.
It's okay. Christian Bale kills the guys who shoot the dogs. It's all right.
Oh, you fucks them up.
But when they burn the remaining pieces of
Yeah.
and the way that they did the color schemes in this movie, like everything is so brutalistic and white or black, like so just plain, devoid of color, devoid of anything except for the banners that you see, and they're like Nazi-esque banners, and then you see these rooms, these stashes full of paintings and books.
Oh,
and
that's right.
art
They find like the Mona Lisa.
yeah,
And they
in
torch
the
the thing.
early, and then these fuckers come in and burn it all. The records, there's no music, and then they find these little oases of color and beauty in this horrible world that they've created just to make things safer. I mean, it's an old lesson. It's an old lot of old themes, but there was a lot in that movie to like. Some of it's hokey, some of it's goofy, but a lot of it plays. And that came out, I don't know, man. I want to feel like it came out not too long after American Psycho.
I'm gonna guess 2006, maybe. That's my guess.
I think earlier than that.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Let's find
2002.
out.
2002 for Equilibrium. And
I like that movie.
Yeah, American Psycho came out 2 years earlier in 2000. I watched the shit out of that. That was one of those surprise rental finds that I ended up just watching to death.
It's got a 40 on Rotten Tomato.
Fuck them, dude.
But it's got a 7.3 on IMDb.
There you go. There you go.
I wonder how
Equilibrium.
that Christian Bale would have done as James Bond. He could have pulled it off, I think.
You think?
He's too old now.
I don't know if he could have pulled it off. I've never really even seen. He's never really done an action movie outside of the Batman stuff.
Yeah, but the Batman stuff was huge.
Yeah, but you could barely tell it's him. It's probably a stunt man most of the time. He probably could have pulled it off. I'm sure he would have been all right.
He pulled
I'm
off
sure
Dick
he
Cheney.
would have been all right. He did pull off Dick Cheney. He's pulled off a lot of weird shit.
Pulled off Patrick Bateman.
I'd give him that. I don't think he'd ever want to do it, but I mean, it's a terrible thing for an actor. It's got to be like a curse, you know?
Yeah,
like it's the
I could see
opportunity
that.
of a lifetime, but it's destroyed careers. Drove George Lazenby insane. He only
Yeah,
did
he
one
did- he
Bond.
did go nuts,
made him
didn't he?
insane. Yeah, he went nuts. Fucking drank his ass off. Fucking. He was supposed to be Bond, I think, for 2 more movies. He was contracted, and the fucking studio fired his ass because he just went off and drank his face off. He couldn't handle the fame. The fame. I don't know. I honestly would be happy if they just stopped making Bonds, unless someone really creative and interesting gets to helm it. But also you have like other interests. Like there's outside parties. Like doesn't the Broccoli family still own part of the rights? And then
I have no idea.
I think Ian Fleming's estate still owns part of the rights. So like they all get to weigh in on shit. There was a huge rights dispute in that film series that caused two Bond movies to be released at the same time. There were competing Bonds with different actors.
What?
All right, hold on. We're going to get this right. It was Sean Connery came back to do another Bond in 1983. Okay?
That
This
Diamonds
was-
Are Forever?
No, this is Never Say Never Again. That's the one with Kim Basinger.
Okay.
Now, here's the weird shit. They made Thunderball in the 60s, which was a Ian Fleming Bond novel, Thunderball. It was like the 3rd Bond movie Sean Connery made, right? Well, because of the rights dispute, they couldn't make the actual Bond books into movies for a while. But they were doing it, I don't remember the exact nature of the dispute, but what ended up happening was Never Say Never Again is a remake of Thunderball. So it's like another adaptation of the Thunderball novel with a different title. And that same year, they came out with Octopussy,
Who's in that?
which was Roger Moore.
Oh.
That was a Roger Moore entry. I forget which number of his it was, but it was one of the later ones. But yeah, that came out in 1983 as well.
So the
you had
same
Old
year,
Man-
you had a Roger Moore Bond and a Sean Connery Bond after he'd been out of the role for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Like he had been out for the entire time that Roger Moore had been doing Bond, and then came back in 83 to drop in a remake of a movie he had already been in the 60s. And he is old as fuck, dude. Like he is really old in that one. And they address it. Like they actually have to address it because he's so old. Like they talk about how fucking beat up he is and shit, and you're like 60% scar tissue. It's not very good, honestly. It's pretty bad. You want to hear something funny?
Yes.
Bond's pistol is famous. He carried
Walther PPK or
Yeah.
something.
the Walther PP and then the Walther PPK through I mean, there are a couple exceptions, but through almost
Didn't
every
he have
movie,
like a Ruger in one of them?
no, never a Ruger. There was a movie where Roger Moore didn't use a gun at all. I think it was Moonraker. I don't know, but his main pistol was a Walther PPK through all of Sean Connery and through all of Roger Moore.
Yeah.
And then when these two movies came out, Walther had a new pistol that they were introducing that year. I think it was called the P9. It was a futuristic polymer grip thing. And this is how smart they were. They actually managed to get their new pistol in both Bond movies that came out that year. So for two movies, Bond switched to the Walther P9, and that was it. It was not a success. No one bought it.
They didn't like it?
No, nobody liked it. And they went back to the PPK after that I think Roger Moore might have done like two more or one more after that, and then Dalton took over. And yeah, that's the story of the year that had two Bonds. The year we were born. Our birth year, 1983, was the year of two Bonds. The moon of two Bonds. And not only that, but Walther managed to get their handgun on the poster for Never Say Never Again twice. Two of them.
Of course they did, man. It's probably you gotta have that product placement.
Germans are good at that. All right, so what do we think? Do we have a consensus? Like,
Yeah, I think Bond is toast.
But they're going to do it again, though, right?
Of course they are.
And is it going to suck?
I think
It's probably going to suck.
Here's the thing, man. Here's why I don't want to see it, and here's why I don't want to see it. Is like right now, all the biggest movies that are coming out are just like reboots and retreads of stuff that used to be good.
True.
You know, like that and sometimes it works. You have a couple that like Top Gun Maverick was awesome. You know.
Yeah, because it knew what it was. It knew what it was. It wasn't trying to.
And that wasn't
something
like
it wasn't.
one in a long line of sequels, and they finally made a good one. Like that was a sequel to a movie that came out years earlier. It was a fresh idea, you know, on an old IP. Bond, though, is like a perennial project. Someone is always trying to get a Bond movie made. There's a bunch like that, and just I don't know, man. Just I think if you have to kind of ignore the outliers and look at the other trends, and it's just I don't know that anybody wants it, and it's never going to be what you're expecting, and it might be done. I don't know if you, and not to mention you said earlier like you're going to piss people off. I don't know that there's been a less tolerant time for a character like Bond, just like a ultra masculine, hard drinking, womanizing spy man. That character model is less popular now than at any point in history.
Yeah, they kind of softened him in that way for the Daniel Craig series, but that's why I said doing it like the Archer way and making it more goofy is probably the only way you could get away with most of it and still have it be like classic Bond. Otherwise, you kind of have to create a new character almost, you know. And what does the landscape look like? Like, how do you even name the bad guys these days? You know, the world's pretty fucking insane. You know, you got to make up fake countries.
Oh yeah, that's always fun. I love when they do that.
Or like you mentioned Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, they just simply don't mention
They never tell you what
all.
country it is.
Nope,
yeah.
They never say it. And I think that was kind of, like, you could call that a cop-out, but I think it was pretty smart.
They're flying Russian MiGs.
Yeah, I guess so. Fifth-generation fighters, man. I want to point this out. We talked about The Hustler and The Color of Money not too long ago, Tom Cruise movie. Paul Newman played the same character in that 25 years apart. It's a pretty big gap, right?
Yeah.
Tom Cruise played Maverick 36 years apart.
Yeah.
That's
Sheesh.
wild. I
That is
never
wild.
I never realized that it was that big of a gap. But
Yo.
yeah, 2022 to 86.
Would you watch a movie about an old pool player named Vincent Lauria, who is now
Yes.
trying to find his way
Yeah.
through like the pool circuit in modern times, 2024?
Absolutely. Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
You basically turn Tom Cruise into whoever he played from Collateral, only instead of shooting a gun, he's got a pool stick and he's
No,
trying
man.
to school some.
Think about it. Like if you made him like gray and like maybe a little shaggy haired and let him have his beard, because he looked cool with a beard in Last Samurai. You know, if he had a salt and pepper beard to go with like his Collateral hair, that could be cool. Have him wearing glasses like Eddie, like
Yeah.
Fast Eddie.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I kind of like that. And then you could have the new kid practically be anybody.
Yeah.
Get some real serious young talent to do it. And the landscape would be so different today. The story itself and
Because you can bet on anything now.
people still play. I mean, you kind of think like nobody plays pool anymore, but I mean, it depends on where you are. And there's still a lot of bars with pool tables. Like there might not be dedicated pool halls everywhere anymore, but there's still some
They're out there.
And there's tournaments. There's lots of tournaments, and there's still money in them. Yeah, I would definitely watch that. What would you call it?
Oh, it went from The Hustler to The Color of Money. Yeah. What do you call it?
The Hustle. No.
It would have some fucking Gen Z title that we don't know about yet because we're all
Skibbity Toilet. Yeah, no, they're already making that movie. They're already making that movie. That's taken. That's taken.
call it The Riz
It's
or
taken.
something like that.
Vincent's Riz. The Riz of Vincent. The Riz of Vincent.
The Riz of Vincent.
Instead of The Rise. I don't want to make this movie anymore. I did. Now
We
I
ruined
don't.
it. We killed it.
Just the title. That's it. It's broken. The whole thing is broken. That's a good idea, though. I never thought about that because I still try to not think of Tom Cruise as old, but he's really old.
He's old, man.
Yeah, he's old.
He's in his 60s, right?
Yeah. Every time Amazon comes up on TV, they got this promo for the last Mission Impossible. I guess they're streaming it, Dead Reckoning.
Yeah.
And it's just this still of him, like before before the motorcycle stunt, which was awesome. But the still that they picked, he just looks like an old lady in goggles. He just looks so fucking old, and it hurts. It hurts my heart and my balls and my bones. All right. I would like to say goodbye to Bond. We're not going to probably be able to say goodbye to Bond, so when they bring back a new Bond, we're going to make fun of it.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
I'm down. Sign me up.
Sounds good to me. Shaken. Not fucking stirred or whatever the hell he says. An asshole. He doesn't even drink real fucking martinis, vodka martinis, whatever.
I wouldn't know. I don't drink martinis.
Yeah, because you're an uncultured swine who drinks beer and Mike's Hard Lemonade. Zima. You guys have a college fridge stocked with Zima. I've seen it.